spinning wheel. This is Cody with F is for Fanatic. That was a White and Sons custom creations, wood creations. They do custom signs for college football, NFL, business. They do it all. It's a small business. It's a husband wife duo. They do it. It looks like in their garage, and they are just pumping out awesome products. Go check them out. The link is now in the description. I forgot last show, so I got the description in now. They are handmade in the USA. They got a Twitch channel, so you can log on and watch your sign being made. They got the kids involved. It's just a good overall family deal there at White and Sons. So today we have a very special guest here at F is for Fanatic, and we have Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. How you doing, Ty?
Man, doing good. Thank you for having me on. Had a good time with you on my show on Friday, so very excited to be sitting here talk with you today.
Yeah, man. Feels like precast. We're kind of talking back and forth. Just feels like a good combo, mesh well together. And
Oh yeah.
you talk about a guy that is as excited about college football and wants to talk about college football as much as I do. This guy is definitely one of them.
Yeah,
So
it's a good thing I do this because if not, I don't know that my fiance would be able to handle it. I'd be bursting at the seams to talk about college football with somebody. So this is a good outlet for the relationship and my mental health, probably. Yeah.
yeah, most definitely. So Yeah, so let's get into a little bit about you, Ty. What is the deal over there at Around the Table? Who's your team?
And
And kind of give us a little bit of a breakdown, about you.
So around the table sports, man, it's just me. It's me over there. I'm able to podcast with a lot of great people. One thing I always say, and I think you can be a testament to it. I just like talking college football, and it's as easy. If someone wants to come on my show, just hit me up. Like
Yeah.
I always tell people, follow me on Twitter, hit me up, and you'll probably get a spot on the show. Just because I think it's awesome to have more opinions, more viewpoints. I learn something. The audience gets a new way of looking at something, but it kind of started as just an outlet that I didn't know what to do after I decided I didn't want to go to law school. And so I wanted to talk about college football, but I didn't know how. The pandemic had hit. I was able to get an internship with Dave Campbell's Texas Football here in Texas. And after that was over, it was the beginning of 2021. I didn't know what to do or where to go. And I already had a YouTube channel where I'd released 4 or 5 videos on just something small before I got that internship. And I think January 2021, I started with like 40, 50 subs. And
Okay.
then by May of 2021, I'd hit 5,000. And we're
Wow.
just past over 18,000 subscribers. So hoping to hit 20,000 by May. That's kind of my goal.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see your growth so fast. And obviously here we have big respects for High Top Sports. I always
Oh,
shout
yeah.
them out.
Great.
Shelton helps me. I had Holly on yesterday, and those guys are just awesome. And I've kind of been there during they're not from the very beginning, but definitely have seen the ride of success. And it just shows you the channels that do that. You guys are producing awesome content. I love the Friday night thing that you do. I think you do it on Wednesdays too, right?
Monday and Fridays. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Monday and
I like
Fridays.
doing that super interactive live stream. It's just a good time.
Yeah, man, and it gets a lot of people's different point of views. It's always very respectful. And the thing I liked about it was, we came on and even though that there was some disagreements on some things, it never turned into a shouting match. It was always
No.
very respectful. And even I took a jab or two at the Tennessee fan because as a Florida fan, I have to. It's in our nature.
Naturally.
You know what I mean?
We're all
It's
just
like,
college football fans, man. At the end of the
yeah,
day, I've always said this to everybody that comes on the show and even people in the comments. If we're just talking like all of us are friends sitting there watching the game, if you're talking mess to another rival team, I'm good with that. As long as it's like in the confines of we're all sitting around the table
yeah,
shooting it together. I think I've been very lucky. One thing I will say, my community has been sensational for the point of they all like kind of picking their sides and engaging in the debate, but it always remains real respectful, and I think that really allows me to be able to maximize the experience for everybody else.
yeah, most definitely. It's man, it is fun. That was an hour and a half, and that just flew by, man. And that's when you know.
And it's not prepped like
No,
we just hop on and we have one topic we kind of know we want to start with, and wherever we go
the
off
rabbit,
of that
just
is where
chasing
we
the
end up.
rabbit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and luckily, college football is a year-round thing now. It's pretty incredible. I was talking to Shelton about it last night or the night before. We were chit-chatting, texting back and forth, and it's like for a content maker that we have hit the holy grail.
Oh,
There is something happening all the time. And not all the time good, but luckily for us, there is something to talk about, which in
always.
years past, we wouldn't even be talking college football right now, really. We're like waiting around. We'd be speculating. We'd be like, oh, well, is this kid going to finally produce after 3 years? Like really getting deep in the weeds. We got stuff to talk about all the time now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, college football news cycle now is mirroring the regular news cycle where it's 24-hour, 365. It does not stop. Coaching moves, NIL, transfer portal, recruiting. I mean, just a few years ago, we saw one of the top players in the nation. I think JT Tuimoloau was a top 10 player coming out of high school. He took his process all the way to July 3rd or 4th. I think he committed on July 4th.
July 4th weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember doing a thumbnail that was red, white, and blue themed for him. So I think it was. But i- just to prove the point, yeah, there's a national signing day. College football is 24/7, 365 now. Does not stop.
Yeah, that and just like this, we weren't even going to talk about coaching. But that kind of leads me in. I saw the rabbit pop up, so I'm
There we
gonna
go.
I'm
Let's
gonna
do it.
dive on in. So college coaching, and when we see these guys jumping ship to go to the NFL, you can't freaking blame them. I mean, these guys are non-stop.
Yeah.
They're Listen, guys. First, you have your regular duties as a college coach. Then you have recruiting. Then now you have retention because teams are finding good players and try to jack them straight off your team. Definite
Yeah.
tampering going on. And it's all back
Recruiting isn't
channel.
just about getting guys to your team now. You have to recruit the guys to stay on your team now.
Yeah. And then you have the transfer portal. These guys are flying around all over the place trying to evaluate uh uh high school guys, trying to figure out what guys are in the transfer portal because there are some people it's kind of like being married. So the high school guys, um these colleges court them and everything, and when you find your first love, everything is great, right? Everything is cupcake until she moves in, and then you figure out there's a bunch of stuff you don't like about her. And so it ends up not going well. You get the divorce, and essentially you have to use your transfer. Okay. So then you have to go find another suitor um, in a college, which is fine. That is very acceptable for now for a lot of people. There are plenty of transfers. But on the other aspect, if a guy has 3 or 4 marriages or 3 or 4 transfers, like we have seen in the past, there's something wrong with them. You know what I'm saying, Ty?
Yeah, 100%. And I am very much a proponent of the transfer portal because I just think it's an equalizer. And what I mean when I say that, we've had coaches, right, be able to drop their contractual obligations and be able to move, but they're bound by like multiple layers of legal obligations. And I get it, these student athletes are bound by contractual obligations as well, but there's always been this greater onus placed on the athlete as opposed to the coach at college football, where the coaches
Okay.
could pretty much move freely. And I
Yeah.
never thought that that same onus was placed upon them. And now the transfer portal equalizes that. I think one of the things we're going to see with the transfer portal, I always say it's like a pendulum, right? Like right now, the pendulum is swinging
Kind of
massively
like
because it's
NIL
still
right
new.
now.
Yep. But as we continue to go, the pendulum will continue to go more towards the center until it kind of equalizes. The question is can we let it get to the point of equalization without stepping in? That I don't know. That I don't know. But I do completely agree with you. I think transferring once, I don't have any problem with that. Hey, look, there are times where you get into a situation, and one of the things we just talked about, because college football is year round, you get there and someone gets recruited over you, and they are that guy. And you might
Yeah,
be
they're a
that guy
dude.
too. But it's just like, I'm not going to play here. I don't mind you transferring. But to your point, when the guys hit the transfer portal 3, 4, 5 times, maybe your wife wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe
Maybe you
you were
got
the
problems.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and people can say, "Oh, you're being crazy." No, we're not. There are guys
No.
that have transferred 4 times. What's his name? The quarterback. He was at Miami last time I saw.
Oh, you're
Oh, man.
thinking of oh goodness gracious, Tate Martell.
Tate Martell. How many times did that guy transfer?
I have no idea. I lost count.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
And when we say maybe you're the problem, understand problem is a massive spectrum. I think when everybody hears problem, they're thinking like, oh,
Oh, no,
literally
no,
this
no,
guy's
no.
a problem. No,
I'm not
we can
saying
mean
Tate
like
Martell is has legal problems
exactly,
or
exactly.
has a bad home. I'm not Tate,
We're saying you
if
might
you
be that
listen to
guy
this,
in high school
yeah,
and you get to college and it's a totally different there's a mental aspect to college sports and upper athletics that does not get talked about enough,
the
right?
speed.
That can be part of the problem, but that's why I'm so sorry to have interrupted you. I did want to throw that out there though. That way people when they're listening, they don't think, "Oh, well, you think all transfers are problems?" No, 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 no. No. There's a
No,
grand
that's not what
spectrum
I'm
of
saying.
problems. Yeah, exactly. I didn't want
And
that
I
to
didn't
I
want
know
to
I
take
had
a sh
said it. Yeah.
I didn't want to take a shot at Tate with me saying me saying that and saying I'm not saying the kid's not a good kid. I'm just saying he didn't fit in anywhere.
Not at all. Not at all. His game did not translate the way everybody thought, and that's kind of the interesting part about this, man, is like you have these guys coming in and they have been the best at every level they've ever played, and then they're in a room surrounded by other guys like that, and it's grueling. But I'm not
Yeah.
surprised at all whenever we see coaches turn to the NFL, or I think one of the best examples of this is Joe Brady. How many offenses have reached out to Joe Brady over the past few years trying to court him back to college?
Yeah.
Word is he doesn't like recruiting. He doesn't like the 365 grind of it. And could you
Dan Mullen.
blame him? Dan Mullen, great example. Yeah.
I mean that guy can has his offense is something else. But he doesn't want to be I don't think he really wants to be a head coach.
He is an interesting figure, man. I know whenever the offensive coordinator position for Alabama was open, there was some chatter of, oh, what would you think if it was Dan Mullen? And I kept telling people, I was like, if they can get him as an offensive coordinator, you gotta love it.
The
Schematically,
dynasty's
the guy's
back.
is there. Yeah, the guy's there schematically. That's not a
Yeah.
question. It's the recruiting. Goodness gracious, I'll never forget that. We'll worry about recruiting when the season's over. My jaw just dropped. I was like, "You're
Yeah.
an
You should have
SEC
seen Florida
coach."
fans.
Oh, I felt so my heart ached. And I do want to let this be known. I am one of those people where I want all college teams to be good because that means college football is better.
Yeah.
And if college football is better, that means my business, my attempted business is better, right?
Yeah,
It's more
most definitely.
intriguing. I have more conversations. I get more interaction. I get to talk to new people. That's a perfect environment for me. So seeing that, it made me hurt for Florida fans.
Yeah, I think the best, and you're an Alabama fan, I think the best thing for Alabama was Georgia being relevant.
Oh man, they have really put an interesting spin on the SEC, which is always like we talked about the other day. The SEC is just such a strong conference, but now you look at Georgia and it's just like, okay, there are two Goliaths in the SEC, and then you got a whole lot of straight soldiers in the SEC, and it
That
is
can
going to
take you
be a
out any
war.
weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a war. I mean, you look at what LSU did to Bama. You
Yeah.
look at what Tennessee did to Bama.
Yeah.
They didn't really have. They had an answer, but once they arrived at the answer, it was too late.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I do lead into this now. Do you think do you think Saban has lost some of his magic?
I don't know that I think it's Saban has lost some of his magic, but if you look, it's like Georgia, right? They are basically a clone of what Alabama does. And I don't mean that in any disrespect, but Kirby Smart came from somewhere that he saw this is a winning recipe. He
Yeah,
went to his alma mater that was already primed for success,
yeah,
right? It's not like Mark Richt left him with what Brent Venables had to take over at Oklahoma
yep,
or even Billy Napier had to take over at Florida.
yep.
He
But
was
guess
he was
where Billy Napier also came from,
true, but I
and
think it's the
guess
amount
who's
of time.
DC? Yeah, and guess where's DC came from 2 years ago was at Georgia.
Yeah,
So the mapping is out there.
yeah.
If you want to beat Georgia and Bama, you got to be like Georgia and Bama, and then you gotta get lucky.
So I don't think it's that necessarily that now maybe I'm answering the question here if I look at it different, and this is completely fair. In my opinion, I don't think that that the answer is that Saban is falling off. I think that college football is now evolving,
Okay,
right?
so it's
Because
changing.
you can only live in this stasis of being dominated by one team for so long before someone's like, all right, I've had enough of this. Right.
So
And here comes
would
Georgia, Clemson.
would you say the Alabama dynasty is over?
See, this is the tough part, right? Because
Because it was a dynasty.
it was a dynasty. I won't bet against Saban. Does that make sense? Because I just
Yeah,
feel like at this point he's earned the benefit of the doubt. And this
yeah.
season was not a good season. And I'm not going to be an Alabama fan that sits up here and says, "Oh, this season, take away this, that, and the other." And this was a national championship team. They could not get out of their own way. Do I think Bama would have fared better than Georgia or than TCU against Georgia? Sure. But
I think there's a lot of teams that would have.
exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean because I've seen people say Bama wouldn't have gotten dragged like that. Sure, but did they deserve to be there? No, they had the
As
opportunity. They didn't win the games.
as
This is
bad as Florida was, Florida wouldn't have got dragged like
I
that.
no, they wouldn't have. They didn't.
They
Right?
didn't.
So
We know
it,
that.
we have genuine proof of
Yeah.
that. I think it's just that this season was an off year, and last year they split the games, right? The
Yeah.
SEC championship and then the national championship. I think it's just that it's Georgia having won it twice in a row that really puts that question in greater emphasis for Alabama. And it's a logical question, one that needs to be discussed.
So you're not in the camp of firing Saban
God no.
because there are.
I know. And I don't know. I even
I
had
mean,
some
Paul
people comment.
Feinbaum, who has a national respect in the SEC, has even been dogging on Saban, and that's been Saban's little talking pony for 10
Yeah,
years.
and look, man, like Georgia was fantastic 2 years in a row. They
Yeah.
split the games with them the second time, and I'm even one of those Alabama fans where I don't say had Jamison Williams not gotten hurt, Alabama wins. You wanna know why I don't say that? Because Alabama had a chance to win that game when Jamison Williams was hurt. They dropped 3 passes in the end zone
Yeah.
and couldn't get out of their own way. So whether Jamison Williams was there or not, the opportunities to win the national championship were there. They didn't take them. Um, no, I've had people come on my channel and say Saban's losing his edge, and I'm like, he's lost 3 games
Yeah.
in 2 years.
Yeah, so kind of a caveat to that. It was very interesting. About a year and a half, 2 years about 2 years ago, Bill Belichick is getting interviewed, and sorry, my dog is whining. Hold on
Oh,
real
man.
fast, guys.
Oh,
I'm gonna let
good,
him.
man.
I got a 80-pound pit bull, and he's just nothing but a big baby. So you'll probably see him. He'll hop on my lap. So Bill Belichick's getting interviewed, and the lady has the gall to say, "Well, Patriots fans have been here for you through thick and thin." And of course, Bill Belichick with the zinger says, "Well, I can tell you this: times haven't been very thin around here." And this is 2 years ago, so this is right after Brady leaves. But yeah, it's to even question after the guy has given you so much success. Now, I ask this: do you think the days of stacking 5 stars like Alabama has done is done because of the transfer portal?
Yes and no.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Like
yes and no.
when we would see a wide receiver go out and Alabama would just be like, "Oh, well, we'll march another." And Saban has said it in an interview because Saban's fiery. He's like, oh, a guy gets hurt, they think we just got another 5 star on the bench. Well, you kind of do, guy. So I'm just saying, call a spade a spade. Just say yes, we do.
Yeah.
But do you think that's done because offensive line had a couple transfers out of there, and then the wide receiver core, I think you had 3 or 4 transfers there too. So do you think it's just because this team didn't mesh well, or do you think it is that the spell of Nick Saban is that he cast on these guys to stay there for 3 years and then essentially play 1 year and go to the NFL? Do you think that that is over?
No, because we just saw Jamison Williams transfer in, play 1 year into the NFL. I think one of the best examples is Quinnen Williams, played 1 year, top 10 pick. Really played 1 year, top 10 pick. I don't think that's done because just like guys that go to Georgia, guys that go to Alabama, these are different kinds of competitors. I
Okay.
have people comment on my channel all the time whenever I make a video and they're like, why would this guy go to Alabama? Why wouldn't he go to team X or team Y or team where he could
Where he's gonna
play?
play right away?
And I said, because what you look at as a bad opportunity, he looks at as a good opportunity. He looks at an opportunity to put himself against the best every single day. Whether he sees the field day one or not is irrelevant. He wants to grind and compete for that opportunity. The guys who are going to Bama and Georgia, for the most part, these are a different mentality of dudes. That's why you look at the guys that are in the NFL and they're damn near Saban clones. It's
Yeah.
because the mentality. Now, am I saying every single guy is going to have that mentality? No. And those are the guys that will leave. But even this year, right? Like two of the guys that transferred out, they transferred out because they got passed up, not by
Yeah.
one guy, not by two guys, but by three guys. And so, like, you can transfer, but at the point where you got passed up by three guys, that's not depth. You get what I mean? Like, there are different
Yeah.
types of transfers. There's the ones where it's just like, why in the world would you transfer? And then it's the ones where it's like, I wish you would have stayed, because don't get me wrong, the guys that transferred from Bama, every single one of them are very talented. And in a perfect world, wish they would have all stayed. I wish the best for all of them. They're going to go out and ball. But it's like, who is transferring? Is it starters? Is it presumptive starters? And there was one presumptive starter on the offensive line. That's the one that hurts, I
Yeah, I
think,
think
the
we got
most.
him.
No, I think Miami did.
Oh, Miami did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Miami got him.
We got a
So
backup. We got a Bama backup, but we're okay with it.
Damian George, very talented. Damian George, very, very, very gifted out of North Shore. Real big, heavy hands. When he gets his hands on you, that's pretty much, well, GG's. You're probably not moving. So yeah, future very bright for him. Very bright. But we ask, well, why is he transferring? Well, it's because when you look at the offensive line class they just signed, I mean, they signed 4 or 5 blue chip guys plus the kid from Iowa who's 6'7", the number one tackle in the nation.
And we're not saying kids don't want to compete.
No doubt.
And there is a real thing about being in Saban's doghouse. If you get into Saban's doghouse,
Not a good
there
place
is
to
no
be.
getting out.
Yeah, not a good place to be.
You're buried. What was that? Was he a tight end or a running back this past year?
You're
That was in
thinking
the
of last year, Jaleel Billingsley, right?
Yes, was in the doghouse.
Was in the doghouse and really could not fight his way through it. And I'm interested to see what the future holds for him, because if he puts it together, he is so gifted. And I know that gets thrown out a lot, But how many times have you ever seen a tight end returning kickoffs?
Never.
They had him returning kickoffs. That's
Yeah.
how gifted he is. Well, he's the one who transferred to Texas, and he's already left Texas. I don't know what his next stop is.
Okay, so now we are talking. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not the wife.
Yes, and
Maybe
I know
maybe
some
it's Billings.
details about that situation that I'm not going to talk about. That was
Yeah,
a marriage that needed to split.
Yeah, and on this show, I don't like calling kids out. That's not the purpose of the show. Well, I'm never gonna come out and say, well, I know this and this and this about them, even if I do, because I don't think that's very respectful.
I don't think Bill O'Brien helped anything.
No.
The way he went about things, and I'm not because I wasn't in the room. It's not my place to say Billingsley was wrong, Bill O'Brien was wrong, or Saban was wrong. That's not my place. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but I've heard snippets from multiple, and I don't think Bill O'Brien made anything easy.
Okay.
I don't think he made anything. I don't think Bill O'Brien made the process of getting out of the doghouse any more conducive to long-term success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and when we say the doghouse, like when you're there, you're scrubbing punts during practice, you're going against the walk-ons, like and to be a starter, to be scrubbing punts and going against the walk-ons and going and fetching the ball. He was fetching. I heard he was fetching the balls for the kickers after they would kick it through the.
Yeah, I don't
through the
know
field
about
goal.
that, but yeah, I mean, wild
When
stuff.
you're in that doghouse and you're a blue chip top 100 athlete, I couldn't even imagine what that does to your ego and your self-confidence.
Yeah, that's why I say, man, he is so gifted. In a perfect world, wherever he ends up next season, he puts his head down, grinds, and has a baller season. I wish the same thing for Ajayi Hall, who left Alabama, went to Texas, and has now left Texas. And I don't
Where's
know
he
where.
from?
Florida.
Florida?
Yeah. I
Yeah, he
don't know
was
where
on.
his next move is, but he is so gifted. I
Yeah,
just want him to get it figured out and be able to showcase why people are so excited about his ability.
he was on Destroyer's channel. Just do you know who that is?
Destroying. Yeah.
Yeah. He was on there on a 7-on-7 when he first signed with
With
Alabama.
Bama, yeah, and he was just he is so gifted, man.
But
So gifted.
there's thousands and thousands of kids that are gifted that we
True.
never even
True.
find out about because they can't get it right in the classroom
No doubt.
or bad situation. They get themselves into a bad situation. We talk about all these Georgia players that are just, I mean, there's a thing on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it, but Pate sent it out. Everybody's like, what's the worst thing for Georgia? And the University of Georgia, and he's like Athens PD because they can't stay out of trouble.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation. What's happening there right now? That's just awful.
What do you think the cause is? Because I
think part of it is this rock star mentality, right? Like,
okay, so
I
I kind of thought of it a different way. So I was in the Marine Corps, and it's a fun fact that the Marine Corps does not retend a lot of their people. So a lot of guys go 4 years and out, just like me. When you've been cooped up, like the Marine Corps does, and you get out, you go hog wild because you've been cooped up and told what to do, when to do it, what you can do, what you can't do, and then you get out and you're free as can be, and you do whatever the hell you want. Oh, and you got some money. So most Marines, most young Marines that do 4 years and get out are in trouble with the law in the first 2. And happened to me. So, it's pretty crazy and people don't talk about it, but I think that is something. I think you're on something though about the rock star mentality. Because there was an article coming out that Mr. Carter had been pulled over by Athens PD during the season.
89 and a 45.
Did you see that?
And Georgia law, if I'm not mistaken, is if you were 90, if he would have been 1 mile over, if I'm not mistaken, it would have been an entirely different classification of charges. I think it would have been upgraded to felony.
Yeah,
And so
reckless felony.
I'm not saying he was going 90. I'm just saying it's interesting to note that the speed limit was exactly the recorded speed was exactly 1 mile under what the
From a
felony
legal
charge
perspective.
would have been. Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, I used to work in law firm.
But we didn't hear about it.
No, no, not
And it
until
happened in season.
now. Yeah. And I don't know if look, I don't want to speculate, but did you
Minus
hear
the
the
wreck, we
way
would have never heard about it.
but did you hear the way the officer was like, "Hey, you can't keep doing this.
Keep doing it.
Like you
And
can't
your
do this."
teammates.
Well, whether he meant like, "Hey, I don't want to be the officer that responds to a call and I unfortunately see you hurt," or "Hey, whether this has happened before." I don't know. But like it was just the fact of like, "Hey man, please," like the officers were pleading with him. "Please don't do
And the
this."
teammates.
Yeah. It's just so unfortunate. Terrible because like I mean, in high school I've lost
Now, do you think
friends and
that was
stuff like
just an
that.
officer? So I got pulled over by one. I had a Toyota Supra when I was 22.
Lucky.
Yeah, it made about 700 horse. So
Mm-mm-mm.
it was rowdy. And that was the last thing I needed. And I got pulled over. There was like a abandoned airstrip service road, and I got pulled over for 127 and a 35 on base. I thought I was done for. And the officer was cool. He's like, "I'm not going to ruin your career. I understand what you're doing. You know, you just got this thing tuned and you're just making a hot pass. I get it." But so we're not saying that Georgia police turned the blind eye. You
No.
know,
No.
we're not saying that. But what bothers me in that article, the cop said, you need to tell your teammates to slow it down too. So they know that these kids are just out there wiling out. And that's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, and I think now the the
Could there be
terrible
an
ending.
investigation on the Georgia police
Maybe
legally?
I just don't I'm not familiar with Georgia law,
Okay,
right? Because like that's the one thing with
that's fair.
law. All these states have such different like ways of going about things. I know like in the state of Texas, street racing that causes bodily injury. Ooh.
Felony.
Ooh, yeah. That's not a you do not want that.
Well,
But I don't know if they have that in Georgia. I don't know.
Here in Indiana, leaving the scene is a felony.
Leaving the scene and also like in Texas, they'd have to be real petty, but like lying can be considered tampering.
And if he was under the influence, DUI causing bodily injury, even if you were not the driver, but if you were a part of it, is also a felony. So we're talking possibly 4 felonies, and
Mm.
it's a very, very grim and terrible situation. And then the wildest thing about the whole thing is you had a staff member.
Yeah,
That's not good.
not good. I'm interested to see what Georgia does this offseason. Because in between that and then that's awful. But then, like you said, whenever that video comes out about the officer stopping Jalen Carter, and then it's like, hey, man, if you listen to the video, the officer is very clearly trying to get through to him. That's why I completely agree with you. I don't think that the police were turning a blind eye. I think they were trying to get through to them, like without having to, put down the hammer. They were trying to plead with them, please, we do not want to respond to a call that they ended up having to respond to.
Yeah.
Right? That was the plea. We don't want to respond to this call, and they ended up having to respond to that call.
Yeah. It's absolutely wild. Did this happen after Alabama's national championships? I'm just wondering.
So there was some, this stuff here or there. I know one thing that got a lot of publicity. I don't know if you remember, Paul Feinbaum got mad at Nick Saban because a player for Alabama had gotten a DUI. And Saban had them do a police ride around, do some time with the police, and then had them back on the team. And Feinbaum was like, that's ridiculous. Come to find out, he was leaving the bars, got to his car, and then realized he was too intoxicated to drive. Put the keys in, turned on the AC, and then hopped in the very back of the car. It was like a Yukon. Put the
Yeah.
seats down and went to sleep. He was like, I'm not going to drive. I'm going to. But in the state of Alabama, if the keys are in the ignition, the
Same
car
here,
is
yeah.
on. So he got a DUI. And that's when Saban was just like, "So you want me to crucify that kid that chose not to drive? Should he have gotten an Uber? Maybe. Yeah, he should have. But like, what he chose not to drive, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so yes, there were some things, but thankfully, man, nothing that ever resulted in something like this.
And I kind of I saw the rabbit again. So have you dove in to after the LSU scandal with Butte
Yeah.
and Miss Destiny, have you dove into the recruiting assistants and recruiting basically like the head of recruiting programs? Have you taken a gander
Yep.
at what kind of staff they are bringing on?
Yep.
Young,
Yep.
beautiful.
And look, a lot of them, I think it's because the marketing, right? Like
Well,
the
what?
way they'd plan these events,
Mhm.
a lot. I forget one of the first institutions to do it, but their person who was in charge of recruiting, she was a rock star, and at like the way they would plan the events were just so much more thoughtful. And now you look across the nation, and it's like a lot of your recruiting
Oh,
staff.
I know who you're talking about because she worked for the University of Florida.
Did she? Okay, I
Yeah,
forget who it is, but
they
she
called her
was
the
like a
most
rock star.
they called her the most powerful woman in Florida football.
Gotcha. I think she was an
Sh
absolute rock star. The events had so much more thought put into them. They
Mhm.
were just nicer, right? Like, and now
A woman's touch.
we look around college football, and that's certainly a trend. Yeah,
And what better way to get 18, 19-year-old kids to come to your school when you have a smoke show for a recruiting, um, the titles always change. They're different titles everywhere, but essentially the ladies that put the recruiting, uh, visits together, and they're always talking
not gonna
to
lie, a
the
lot of
kid.
these women out here are just absolutely killing it. Though you look at some of these events they're putting together, they are absolutely
Oh, I'm not
killing it.
no, 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 I'm not saying
Oh
that
no, no, no!
it's
I'm
one
just
thing.
throwing
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. We're 100% on the same page.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, that boy, that's they've figured it out a way to get
Any
kids
advantage you can
interested.
get.
And this is where I saw it one time, and it was a University of Florida event where they went to Dave& and Buster's. Um, one of our I'm not gonna put name one of our like, the kid that we were trying to get as a linebacker, and Miss Katie, who is an absolute rock star at her job, were shooting. They were competitive. They were on the basketball game, just shoot against each other,
Mhm.
and you could just see. I don't want to say flirtatious, but kind of
Salesperson.
flirtatious. Yeah.
They're selling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I kind of it's interesting, but here comes the problem: is you can run into an LSU problem real fast, and if there's nothing that is more grimy than a sex scandal with a staff member, that's it. And we're gonna say this: what's his name at LSU? The coach,
Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly, is the king. He will die on the sword. He dies with the lie for his players. I will give him that. I don't like him. He's very grimy. I know of some things that happened at Notre Dame that would make your stomach turn.
Mm.
That he got players got away with, and we're still on the team. So the guy will die on the sword for his players. But boy, is he a king of we haven't heard anything about it. It was out for like a week, the Butte Destiny thing,
Hey, I
and then
will
it
say
was
this,
gone.
part of the best thing you can do, and I know this is going to sound wild. We live in one of these the environment we live in now. There's going to be a bigger story.
Yeah.
Give it a few hours. maybe give it a few seconds. There's so them almost playing dumb to the point of let's just wait. Let's just wait. And then
Yeah,
people will forget. It
you know,
it kind of worked.
it did work.
Yeah,
He's
it
a king
worked.
at it.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: Florida made national headlines 3 times this year, and not one of them was a good thing. Not one. Kitna,
Yep.
Stokes, Rashada. Bad. It's a bad look. But there are some people out there, I don't know if you agree that that any news is good news, that you're still relevant.
Well, look, I think there's a fine line, right? Like I think that there's something to the fact of like brand notoriety.
Yeah.
And people love a redemption story. So
Yeah.
the concept, like the psychological concept of all news is good news, almost plays on this human nature that we love the underdog, we love the redemption arc, and so you're putting yourself out there in this negative facet, almost setting up the psychological warfare that the person will experience that they don't like you now, but if you start turning it around, they're much more inclined to start following, right? So like
Yeah.
there is something, but at the same time, I just I'm just one of those people, man, where I'd rather be like 100% authentic and
Yeah.
have to take a long time to get a following than to just start saying some wild off the wall stuff that I know people are going to click on, but it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but like I want to be taken seriously.
Can do you see Georgia possibly following down the same track of Florida and Urban Meyer era after that? Look at all the bad things.
I don't know, man. I
Or
don't
do you
know.
think this is just kind of a fluke?
I don't know because for right now, I want to say fluke, and that's me trying to, say things happen as terrible as things are. Like, this is an awful situation all around, and maybe there can be learning from this, and maybe there can be a more positive culture cultivated from this.
Okay.
I'm not. I always say this. I'm not a sunshine pumper,
Okay.
right? I don't try and be someone who sunshine pumps, but I always try and give people the optimistic view because the negative is always there. But what can we
Alright.
take away from it? You know what I mean? And so I'm
Yeah.
optimistic that they can take something away, and I certainly hope it won't turn into a situation like that. So I think that for a hope, I'm going to answer with no. I don't think it will be like that. Just trying to speak that into existence.
Okay. Yeah, most definitely. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about, is now you are an Alabama fan, but boy, you have a lot of OU support.
Yes, sir.
And so do you kinda follow both teams?
I follow every team, like religiously.
Okay.
I've got a file of I don't even know. I think it was close to 100 teams of all 22 film, and all night I'm watching everybody's all
Oh, boy.
22.
You're gonna have to send
No,
some of that stuff to me. I
the,
love it.
the Alabama fandom came from man. I told you, my mom was from Virginia, my dad was from New York. Neither one of them were from the state of Texas, right? So whenever I came into the picture, my mom was an Alabama fan because she had family go to Alabama.
Okay.
Um, so that was like several people in our family are familiar, and Alabama and UVA are actually sister schools. University of Virginia, they're sister schools. So there was kind of like a natural progression for some of my family in Virginia to go to Alabama. And so she was a Bama fan, and my dad was a diehard Nebraska fan because I told you he was a college professor at UConn and then just up and left to work on a horse ranch in Lincoln, Nebraska. And the only thing they had to do out there for fun was go to the games. So because of that, growing up, I had a Nebraska fan in the house, I had an Alabama fan, and Sean Alexander sealed the deal for me. Sean
Okay.
Alexander and Glenn Coffey, like those were the two where it was just like, yeah, I'm big Alabama fan because of those guys.
You
Yeah, Sean
yeah, you
Alexander was awesome.
you talk about a loyal fan base. Nebraska's been through it, and
They have been
they
through it
they they pack that stadium every year. It
every year.
is impressive.
I want them to be turned around with Matt Rule so bad it almost sickens me. I want
Yeah,
him to
they
get it
do
right.
deserve one.
I just, man, I feel so bad for them. But no, to kind of directly answer about Oklahoma. Even though I was an Alabama fan, I grew up on the Red River. So like I throw a football, I can hit Oklahoma and I'm standing in the state of Texas.
Okay.
So I kind of got this unique perspective on one of the biggest rivalries in sports at the intersection of that rivalry. And so, as big of an Alabama fan as I was, you had no choice but to be inundated by Texas and Oklahoma just because of
I
proximity of where you live.
Yeah, I TiVo it.
Yeah.
If Florida's playing and uh the Red River rivalry is on, I'll TiVo it.
Yeah.
That's always a thriller.
So it's one of those things where whenever I started doing this, the first team I really started covering was Alabama. My first video that really got me some traction, it was right when I was interning at Dave Campbell's. One of the 5 videos I said I told you I made before 2021
Yeah.
was a breakdown on Will Anderson after Missouri, his first game. And I was like, all right, Bama has a super weapon. That's the title of the video after his first game is Bama has a super weapon. How did Kirby let him get out of the state of Georgia? And I mean, obviously his career ended up turning out incredible. But around that time, I'd started with Alabama because that was the team I had the most familiarity with. But I knew I wanted to talk college football in general. And so I kind of wanted to build up a following with these teams. That way I could interact with the fans and like kind of start that whole process of actually building a community. And so whenever I wanted to start expanding, it was natural for me to go to Texas and Oklahoma as the 2 teams to expand to first,
Yeah.
because it was Alabama as the team I had the most knowledge on, and then Texas and Oklahoma were right after that. And now it's just becoming like as many teams as I can really fit into a schedule I want to talk about.
Yeah, that it's interesting because at first I was like, "Oh, is he an Alabama fan?" Like,
I have a
we have
lot
a
of
lot of
Oklahoma
OU stuff.
fans who like really are awesome, awesome community
Yeah.
members, man. And they tune in. And actually, I don't know if you saw there were some guys from my stream that were over at High Top stream the other day in the
Yeah.
comments having fun. They were going
Yeah,
back
Hank,
and forth. Hank,
old Hank made it over to mine. I had a
great guy,
man,
man. Great.
I tell you, you talk about when you're trying to put one of these together, not everything always goes as planned.
Nothing. Nothing goes
Uh,
as planned almost
s
ever.
so yesterday I tried to do a live show, and this is the 3rd one, so I think I got it freaking ironed down pat. You know, I show up 20 minutes before, get my computer ready and everything, and just one thing after I end up taking it down because it was so bad. Just one thing after another. My mic wasn't plugged in all the way,
Yep. I've had
so
that.
it was picking up the mic from the webcam. There was a weird ringing in the back that the frequency from the webcam was picking up. Oh my god! And old Hank commented on my video. You know, another video just to say I was watching you. I was busy, you know, outside doing something, but I had you on. And man, you talk about if we could get a thousand more of Hanks,
If
man,
if
that'd
if
be
if there
awesome.
was 1,000 Hanks in the world, I would be set every video. I would just be like, Hank's got me. Hank's
Yep,
got me.
for
He's
sure.
he's great, man. I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. I It's almost surreal for me every time I go to put something together, I get on YouTube and I see that number because it feels like I'm still at like 1,000 subscribers, really still getting started. And the only thing I can tell people, man, is I just got so lucky of having an unbelievable community. And I think Hank, that's just a great example of the community that has really been able to really prop up my channel is guys like that, people like that.
Yeah, most definitely. Sorry, my dog has allergies, so now he's
Oh, I
sneezing
get
and
it.
doing all
I get
kinds
it.
of stuff. God,
No
this
need to
thing,
apologize.
80 pounds of just dumbness.
I told you I have mine out in the living room with my fiance right now, and she's probably laying on her back demanding tummy rubs.
Yep, yep. So, all right. So let's kind of get into the schedule, and what is let's do Oklahoma first.
Gotcha.
What what do you think? Schedule strength of schedule. What do you think the win loss is looking like for them? Um,
They have a very favorable schedule in
okay.
2023. A very favorable schedule. Um, so you don't have to play Kansas State if you're Oklahoma, and they have been a thorn in your side for years. I'm of the belief, man, that Brent Venables is going to get it right. But I always used this example whenever we'd be on lives and I'd have the Oklahoma fans in there. One guy I told you I really want to get you connected with, Chris Griffin.
Yeah.
I always told him because he's a practicing attorney, graduated law school, brilliant guy. And I'd always tell him, I said, Chris, you'll get this. Just because you might be the best litigator in your law firm doesn't mean you're going to be the best law firm partner. What I mean when I say that is you can be the best defensive coordinator in the nation. That doesn't mean you're going to year one be the best head coach in the nation. It is an entirely different job. An
Yep.
entirely different job. That being said, I think anybody that's seen Brent Venables coach understands he's a competent coach. The recruits love him. The fact that they were 6-7 and still put together a top 4 recruiting class in the nation, plus for 2 years in a row now, Oklahoma is only one of 3 teams to be able to claim they put together a top 10 class in recruiting and top 10 class in transfer portal acquisitions.
That's big nowadays in college
That's
football.
big. So this schedule they have is very, very favorable. Kicking it off, Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincy, Iowa State, Texas, UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, TCU. This is a favorable schedule for Brent Venables.
And we don't know the after effects of what TCU is going to be now.
No, I have some questions.
When you get skull drug like that, it does something to the team.
It does
Am I
something
right?
mentally. No, 100%, man. And I keep bringing it back to this in the green room. We kept talking about this, but like I do a lot of combat sports references in my videos. And a great example of this is I think the UFC fight last night. You have Cyril Gane, who is one of the most freakish athletes we have in the UFC, right? Unbelievable kickboxer. His athletic ability is just unbelievable. John Jones walked him down after not having been in an octagon professionally for 3 years and within 2 minutes disposed of him.
Yeah.
Like it was easy. As great as Cyril is, that's going to be a tough loss to recover from because you were just fighting for a belt and within 2 minutes, John Jones just walked you down, put you in a guillotine, and you were done. That's tough, man. Great Ronda Rousey on top of the world. Holly Holmes hits her with that head kick.
Never
and
the same.
it breaks you.
Yeah.
You have a very real look. I thought I was number one. I thought I was the best in the world. And I just went up against someone and it wasn't even close. And I thought I was the best. And it wasn't close.
Yeah, and for TCU, I have even found myself because I'm a big Minnesota Vikings fan, and I have found myself to shy away in this year's draft. I'm like, oh, yep, he's from TCU. Nope, got some questions there, especially on
I
the
love their
defensive.
wide receiver, Quentin Johnson.
Yeah,
I love him. Love him.
especially their defensive backs coming out. I'm like, it says he's really good, but I'm not real sure because that's a TCU program that just got, and that's sad that one game can taint all the good.
Yeah, and in fairness, that was a TCU team that I don't think many people thought would be able to beat Michigan, and they did. But then just geez, to your point, man, you can't just be an impressive team, beat Michigan, and then get dismantled. You can lose. You can't get dismantled. Like surgically dismantled.
Yeah, and we kind of were talking about this on the stream last stream on your channel. When TCU is built about around one thing, the sheer will of Max Duggar wanting to win. And when you have that, what happens when he doesn't show up? It's the same thing as AR. This guy is putting up all these stats and everything at the combine, and everybody's giving Billy Napier a bunch of flack. But when you're so one-dimensional,
yeah,
and you're saying, look, your athleticism has to carry the team. When it doesn't show up via Kentucky or via Georgia, when you don't show up, it shows you the real team. I think we got the real team, TCU Georgia. Am I wrong?
I don't disagree at all. And I'll put it like this too, man. TCU had just lost to Kansas State as well. Okay. We know Kansas State played Alabama in that bowl game. And the first quarter, Kansas State kicked Bama's ass. Excuse my French, but to put it lightly, they were kicking Bama's butt the first quarter.
Yep.
They owned the game the first quarter.
I agree.
Bama came alive in the second quarter and the third quarter. By the end of the third quarter, Bryce was out and it was just playing till the end of the game.
Yeah.
They blew the Big 12 champion out the water in 2 quarters of work. And remember, important to note, they possessed the ball for 10 minutes plus in the second quarter. So in 17 minutes of work, Alabama blew the Big 12 champion out the water. And I think at that point, it was kind of like, oh boy, what is TCU in for? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
what?
and Georgia was a better team
Oh, there's no question. There's no
than
question. Georgia, I think,
Alabama.
would have beaten anybody this year.
I
Ohio
yeah,
State was the best. Schematically speaking, Ohio State made the most sense.
yeah, and I still think Ohio State gets railroaded by Georgia.
I
You
mean, I agree, but
There's just too much elite talent. You know,
unbelievable team.
and my thing is and that's kind of where SEC guys get the flack is like, oh well, look, Bama showed up for 15 minutes of the game and blew you guys out of the water, and then put the I never say scrubs because I don't like that. These guys are out there grinding, working their ass off, but they put the second team in. They put JV in. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, in the fourth quarter, they were on to, not only did Jalen Milroe get to play, but they went to third string quarterback at the end of that game. Like they were cycling in players for that entire fourth quarter against Kansas State.
Yeah, so that's kind of where the SEC gets everybody in the SEC kind of gets their I'd say their cockiness from and a lot of Big 12 guys don't like SEC guys. I caught a little flack from some Oklahoma guys on your channel in the
But that's a
comments.
proud like there are certain programs in the Big 12 where they are going to respond like that. Texas and Oklahoma are probably the two.
Oh,
Like when they respond like that, though, I'm like, okay, I will hear your arguments, but if the Texas Tech fan responds to me like that, buddy, go throw your tortilla on the field. Like you don't want this smoke.
yeah.
OU is such a winning program where it's like, okay, if you're mad at what I said, I'll hear you out because your program. Let's be honest, man. And I think we all said this. OU is a program that will fit into the SEC culturally. The fanaticism around the fan base, like they'll fit in.
I don't think there's another two teams in the nation that the SEC could have picked to just seamlessly merge in, and
I
it's
agree
gonna fit.
completely. I agree completely. Maybe Clemson,
No,
but like really, okay. See,
and this is why. Clemson, I don't feel the fan base from Clemson.
fair. Yeah,
I
that's
can
fair.
get on and talk shit about Clemson and nothing.
It's lukewarm. Yeah.
Lukewarm. Boy,
You,
you talk
Oklahoma will
some
have it
smack
boiling.
about Oklahoma, you best be ready because they will be in the comments.
I love their fans.
They will find you
Yeah.
every source. They will find you via Facebook, Twitter, and they will blow you up. And hey,
They're
it
great.
is what it is. I'm okay with it. I cheered back right on the comment. It is what it is. But I think I think the SEC did it right there.
Yes.
And I think they got the two best teams that seamlessly just go right into the SEC and the culture and the fanaticism. Because
Well, you're going to have
talk
Oklahoma fans a permanent fixture for you now because of the 3 permanent members.
Yeah.
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 So I mean, you that's a fan base I'd get familiar with. They are a great fan base, man. So that I think you hit the nail on the head and you said it.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I feel like Oklahoma. I watched your video and you guys were breaking down the depth of Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about some defensive positions and when you were breaking it down, I could have closed my eyes and I felt like Oklahoma was breaking down like you guys were breaking down Florida. I feel like the teams.
There is an interesting parallel.
First year coaches with Billy Napier and Venable has had success, but not at the level of what they are now.
Yeah, people were expecting it to be a bit more seamless than it was.
Yep.
I think both programs were left in a state far worse than the average fan realized when both Billy Napier got to Florida and Brent Venables got to Oklahoma. I think
Yep.
everybody looked and said, "Oh, those are two Ferraris." No, that's a Ferrari shell with a 1957 Chevy engine in it, and it's not going to go.
Yeah, it's a Fiero right now.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's bad, and I think that's if Oklahoma fans went and listened to some Florida stuff, we have the same questions as Oklahoma. You
Yeah,
know,
it's really
the
interesting.
defense was absolutely atrocious. We have all new players coming in. We just don't know. It's an unknown. The season did not go as expected. The same way Oklahoma, everything that you guys said, I said about Florida this year. I was thinking when you guys were talking, I was like, these guys are talking about Florida. I didn't know Oklahoma's parallel is so the same. The fanatics of the fan base, the past winning culture there. And then I tell you, there's going to be a rivalry ignite between Oklahoma and Florida, and
I
it
think
is going to
so.
be rowdy. I don't think it's going to
Gonna
be
be
as
great.
big with Texas. I don't know why. Texas like, whatever. But Oklahoma, Florida, it's going to get chippy.
I feel it. I do.
It's going to get nasty.
It's going to be
And boy,
great.
I hope they play every year. I hope they are.
Well, that's the permanent.
Is it?
The floated so far. Oklahoma would have Texas, Missouri, and Florida is their 3 permanent.
Boy, I hope so.
And I hope, because I look at that and I'm like, there's a rivalry that could be born from this. There's
And
a
it's gonna be-
legitimate rivalry.
And I think it is going to be maybe bigger, and people are about to lose their mind. I think it may be bigger than Florida State, and Florida Miami.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. This is a little bit of a pivot, but I've always said this. I don't think that there's any program in the nation that Mario Cristobal is more thankful for than 2 coaches right now, 2 programs, Florida and Oklahoma. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because everybody in the nation is talking about Florida was disappointing this year. Is Billy Napier the guy? Everybody in the nation is talking about Oklahoma had a bad year. Is Brent Venables the guy? Nobody is looking at Miami and saying, what the hell happened there?
I call them out all the time.
No doubt, but you get my point here. Like,
Yeah.
the national spotlight is just shown away from Miami, and it's just like Brent Venables and Billy Napier are getting the flack, and Mario Cristobal has got to send them chocolates. I mean, he owes them a chocolates, a date. I don't know.
You have ignited something in me. You talk about, and I'm sorry, Ty, I got to get this out.
No, go. That's
you
the point
talk
of this.
about a program that is not a dumpster fire. Being on the Xbox, new achievement, you are a wasteland fire. You are so bad. Coaches are running. And for 247, yeah, Poppy Ruiz wrote 247 a check to spin the narrative your way. Did you see that article? Billy Napier losing coaches. We lose 3 coaches. You guys have lost 6. Our coaches went to the NFL. Miami's coaches don't even have jobs, or they took lateral moves, or they had to beg their buddy Nick Saban to get back to Alabama. Please save my career.
Kevin Steele, a big reason he's with Saban is the past experience they have together. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to Kevin Steele. You have achieved far more in life than I probably could ever hope to achieve. But I wonder whether you would have that job if you didn't have the familiarity with Nick Saban in the past.
Nope.
Because the numbers weren't great. They were bad.
And let me say this about Miami. We do not use the H word on this channel. Okay? They are not that. They are the tropical depressions, because they are a sad program. Have you seen on live TV? How do you get kids to go there? You ain't got nobody in the stands. We talk about Miami being a power program. Get out of here. You rent a stadium from Aaron's. You rent a stadium like a 19-year-old kid rents furniture from Aaron's for their first apartment.
Now, see,
I don't want to hear no Canes bullshit.
Here's probably where we disagree, because I would love for Miami to get good. I want for the Hurricanes to get good.
I hate them.
Because I think it's so good for college football. But I had this same conversation the other day when we were talking about USC. And I was like, there are different types of fans for different teams. I said, you don't have to make Oklahoma fans care. They care. You don't have to make Florida fans care. They care. Bama fans, they show up caring. Georgia fans, these fan bases I just listed you, they bleed their colors.
Yes, absolutely.
Miami, USC, you got to convince the audience to care. And if you can't do that, you're going to be playing in empty environments because there's the opportunity cost, right? Like we talked about this in political science all the time, the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost in LA is I could go watch USC get dragged or I could go surf.
Yeah.
Well, now Lincoln Riley's there. Hopefully he can turn it around. I hope Mario Cristobal can do the same thing at Miami. But like, if you're a Miami fan, is the opportunity cost of going to watch your offense put up less than 100 yards versus Clemson, does that beat going to the beach?
They were bad against Southern Miss.
They were bad against Southern. They were not good this year.
Southern Miss shut them down. And you can say 7-3 or 30. Let me tell you something. Go look up Southern Miss's recruiting classes. You should be ashamed, Miami. You should have hung half 100 on them, and you couldn't.
They lost to Middle Tennessee State University.
Yeah.
If you lose to a 4-letter acronym team, I don't know what to say. That's not good. MTSU? Mm-mm.
Yeah. And people say, "Oh, well, Florida, you lost to Vandy." Yeah, well, let's be real. Vandy is not the Vandy of the past, okay?
Here's the thing. When they put down that little description in the box, right? It says UF, 2 letters, and then VAND. Or VAN, Van. That's 3 letters. Miami lost to a 4-letter acronym team.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah, middle. I can't even get the team right. I'm like, yeah, you guys lost to some middle Western Tennessee South something or another. You didn't lose to Tennessee.
If the location was not in the name, I would not be able to tell you where they were. But I am fairly certain they're in the middle of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going to be mad. Right. But if it wasn't for Middle Tennessee State University, I would not know where you were.
Yeah. And then people say, oh, well, Florida almost got beat by, University of South Florida. I'm like, well, number one,
USF? Yeah. Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver. Come on now.
Look at the talent level those guys get.
Come on now. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a bad team, but
they had dudes.
Look at the talent. They ain't got no dudes in Middle Tennessee State. Okay. I'm sorry.
Not to beat Miami the way they did.
No, not at all. Miami should be ashamed. And you know what? And this is how I know the fan base is Miami is very the fan base is they're hot and cold. Okay.
Yeah.
And they are back every year. The U is back. And then they get to like game 3 and it all fizzles out every year.
Well, I was talking to Shelton about this. When Cristobal first got there, I'd do Miami recruiting content, put it out, and it would boom. I mean, I started getting a huge Miami following. Now I'll make a video and I'm like, man, I loved the thought I put into this. I really loved this argumentation I brought up. I haven't heard people really talk. 1,000 views. And I mean, like, this might be a big time recruit.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, it just doesn't carry the same weight. Whereas Oklahoma, you put out a random off the wall theory craft video of Oklahoma. Like, it could be one that I know, like, there's no other fan base that would click on this. I know I'm getting at least 500 views.
Yeah.
That's the type of fan base OU has where they
Boy,
care.
And if you stir the pot, watch out.
Oh, they got after me whenever the year Lincoln was there before he left.
Yeah.
I thought OU was going to be a very good team that year. And after game 1, I made a video and I was like, guys, something's wrong. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, but we won. And I was like, yeah, but not all wins are created equal. And then I had this whole argument and they were like, yeah, but a win is a win. And I said, yes, but if you win by 1 touchdown against Middle Tennessee State University, that is not the same thing as blowing out Georgia.
Yeah.
Those are 2 different wins. I was like, y'all won by 3 points against Tulane and like they tested you in a bad way. And yeah, I had some OU fans give me some flack for that. But at the end, like, I think a lot of them now, they go back and watch that game and they're like, yeah, something was off.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny you bring up Tulane, man. They got a guy.
Yeah.
Tajay Sharp.
Yeah.
The NFL, he's going to the NFL. Golly, man. I watched him during the Southern Miss game, and you just saw him on the field, and you're like, "Yep, that's an NFL back if I've never seen one before."
Yep.
And that's sorry, the rabbit. I seen the rabbit again.
No, the Tulane's got some good players, man. They've got
Yeah,
a
but you
solid team.
shouldn't be testing Oklahoma like that.
No, and then in fairness, Lincoln Riley the next year goes to USC and then loses to Tulane.
Can I ask you this? Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
But
no,
this
by all
is
means.
this has really bothered me. What is the fan? Next time I'm going to ask this. That I'm on your show with all the Oklahoma fans, but I want to see your theory on this. What is the thought about Lincoln Riley for OU fans?
They're not high on him. Not high at all. Because the thing is, man, is
He left in the middle of the night. Like
he
the Colts left
in the
Baltimore.
middle of the night, and then there was a lot of talk that he wasn't even going to tell the team. He wasn't going to talk to the team. Bob Stoops had to stop him on the way out and drag him into the room so that he would tell the team. It got crucial, man. And they even think that the LSU thing was leverage so that he could get a bigger contract from USC. And so he said, I'm not leaving Oklahoma for LSU. He never said, I'm not leaving Oklahoma. If you go back, he is very poignant with his words. He gives a canned lawyer response. So are
they out in droves with pitchforks? They hate him so much, or
there was OU fans who took pride in being blocked by Lincoln Riley on Twitter. I mean, they have an acronym for Lincoln Riley. If you're ever on an Oklahoma video and you see TBOW, that's an acronym they use for Lincoln Riley.
What does it stand for?
You mind if I use some
foul
language?
Air it out.
That bitch out west is what they refer to
Oh my God, I love
Lincoln Riley as. So there is a deep animosity for how he left. And it's interesting, that's what I was talking about when they played Tulane. I was like, something isn't right. And they were like, oh, but we're winning. And I was like, no, but I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was like, it was very obvious that there was a virus. And I was just like, I'm just not a good doctor, so I can't tell you what the virus is, but I just have eyes and I can tell you something's not right. Well, I don't think they were bought in, or he was bought in.
And you talk about parallels. I'm gonna hit you with another one. Oklahoma fans, you might be closer to a Gator than what you think.
There is an incredibly interesting parallel.
Now,
I'm telling
Dan
you,
Mullen did not leave the University of Florida in the middle of the night. But if he would have got the coaching opportunity at the NFL, if he would have got his head coaching opportunity that he wanted, he would have left Florida in the middle of the night. And we all know it. He just stuck around long enough to get fired. He was not bought in.
And then, man, you think about the deeper implications of this. So Oklahoma at that time, they had one of the top recruiting classes in the class of 2023 when Lincoln Riley had left. They had Malachi Nelson. They had those 2 or 3 5-star offensive players, all from California following. Well, then Lincoln Riley goes to USC, and all of that talent just right there. And there was even some talk that some people may have been more aware than others that this was happening. Right. And that's why there was
he depleted the team, right?
There was a coach that was taking, I forget the exact story, so I'm not going to say any names. And if an Oklahoma fan watches this, they'll probably be able to give you the actual thing that happened. There was a coach who, while they were with OU, it was only a matter of time before they went with USC. They were actively recruiting for USC while still with OU.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
It went.
That's treason.
It went.
This is while they're in the season.
Well, no, it's out, right? Like this is off season.
Okay.
He was doing this.
So
Lincoln had already gone
saying
to USC and
it's like
in the off season.
It's like a car salesman saying, "Hey, I'm going down the road next week. I'll hook you up over there. Come over there and buy the car."
Yeah, pretty much.
That's so sleazy.
And so that's why I've always told USC fans this, because there'd always be this war in my live streams of USC fans and OU fans, and USC fans are like, "Oh, but people leave for jobs all the time." Like,
not like that.
Get over it. And I'm like, man, nobody is mad that he left
It's the
one
way.
job for another. That's life.
Yeah,
There's a way you do things. And objectively speaking, that was the wrong way to do it, right? Like, let's all be adults here. You cannot be a leader of men and then at the drop of a dime ditch your men.
I agree.
That
Absolutely.
sits wrong with me, right? Like, that sits wrong.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
can I ask you this?
Go ahead.
Why do you think he left? It's not just money. You think he
Mm.
ran from the SEC?
Well, so there's some interesting things in the background here, right? There's some talk that he wanted some things from Oklahoma that Oklahoma wasn't necessarily willing to give him, that he
Okay.
thought he needed to be able to compete for in the SEC. Now, they have since given those things to Brent Venables. So whether or not Lincoln Riley's story of, well, they weren't willing to give me these resources, but now they're willing to give it to Brent Venables, I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't believe that. I'm sorry.
See what I'm saying?
the-
I'm just
the-
painting the picture. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry. The University of Oklahoma is too proud for that.
You and I think the same.
Unless
you and I think the same.
unless
They weren't
the
bought into
boosters,
him.
yes, unless the boosters knew that he was not a guy that they could trust.
Yep. So maybe there is validity to his story saying, "Oh, well, they weren't going to give me the resources." But if that's the case, buddy, that's a bigger.
Because they knew that he was courting a job.
Or they just didn't think that he was going to be able to take them to the promised land, like Bob Stoops.
And I will tell you this, there's another coach out there that's just like old Lincoln. They could be twins. You know who it is? Old Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin. Let me tell you this, man. Lane Kiffin irritates me so much. He essentially says, listen, I'm going to stay here at Ole Miss. He loses his rivalry game to Mississippi State and says, hey, Auburn, how are you doing today? Courts Auburn into an interview just to get a big extension after he lost to Mississippi State in a rivalry game, and that is a big deal in Mississippi.
Yeah, in fairness, I never thought that the Auburn smoke was real, and the reason is very simple. They attempted to launch a coup against their head coach. There is no position in the nation I would least rather have than Auburn.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the worst program. But Auburn's easy to court to get you into an interview, and then you use them.
Exactly.
Just like LSU and Lincoln Riley. Now, Lane Kiffin didn't run from the SEC. I'll give him that. So he's a step above Lane.
And I don't know if he ever ditched his team in the night like that. Right? I know he got left on the tarmac, but that wasn't up to him. You get what I mean? Like, whether or not he ever just, like, without saying a word to his team. I'm not saying he didn't. If he did, I've forgotten about it.
So you're saying if it wasn't for the interjection of Bob Stoops, what does he do there at Oklahoma?
So at the time, man, Lincoln leaves and Bob coached the bowl game for them.
Yeah, I do know that. But what is he just a guy there? He's like our Steve Spurrier.
He's he's just Bob Stoops. Like, he's just kind of a liaison. I think that's a great, like an ambassador for the brand.
Another venture of how Oklahoma and Florida are so close. It's crazy.
It actually, and I've said this several times, whenever we've talked about Florida with Oklahoma, and I'm like, there's a parallel here for the way that Napier has started and Venables has started. Both of these coaches are getting so much flack, but there's not a whole lot of nuanced discussion outside of each of these fan bases about the programs they inherited. Everybody wanted to say, oh, you recruit so well. Oh, Florida recruits so well.
Yeah,
both true. But, like, what was the current status that matters? And it wasn't good.
Everybody keeps saying Napier's not the guy because of Kirby. Look at what Kirby did.
Kirby inherited a much better situation.
Oh my God, Kirby inherited. So the way I put it is Kirby inherited a fully built race team. They just needed the driver. The car was there. The pit crew was there,
and they needed the structure and the team, and he provided all that.
Yep. They had players. They had talent. Mark Ricks did wonderful things talent wise. accumulating the talent. He just wasn't a gamer. He could never win the big ones. And we talk about that a lot on this channel about being a gamer. And there's just some guys that aren't. But yeah, I find Bob Stoops and if Florida fans, if you don't think old Steve Spurrier would coach a bowl game if he had to, he definitely would. And that's the pride. That's why I think this thing is going to
You
be
gotta
cooking.
love Bob Stoops for that, man. If you're a football fan, even if you're a Texas fan, and you've went your whole career not liking Bob Stoops, if you're a fan of the game of football, you gotta love that
Steps in
move.
overnight.
Overnight.
Has a presser.
You gotta love it, man.
Yeah. That's the admiral. That's a leader of men.
Yes.
That's the
yes.
same thing. That is the same thing Steve Spurrier would have done.
I get it. Like whenever he did that, all of a sudden I was like, I've always held Bob Stoops in high regard. But when he did that, I was like, I get it now. I get why people will run through a brick wall for this man. I get it now. Cool.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
Let's talk a little bit about Alabama. What's the expectations for them?
That's a great question, man. Because
talent wise, you got all the talent in the world there. Again, we talk about a program nobody talks about because I think it happens so much. How many coaches Alabama loses every year?
Yeah.
You know,
they cycle through them.
Florida loses 3 and 247, saying it's a complete collapse. But Alabama loses 5 coaches a year, and it's like, oh well, you know, that's just it. So go ahead.
It's because they've been able to create this environment where they're the exception as opposed to the rule, right?
Okay.
And that's almost why earlier when you asked me, is the dynasty done? I struggle with this duality, right? Because I don't want to be a homer and be like, oh, of course the dynasty isn't done. But at the same time, I do feel like Nick Saban has showed us enough to where it's like completely fair to be like, no, I got to see them dead to really believe they're dead, right?
Yeah.
I got to see it end.
Yeah, most definitely.
As far as next year goes, there are some areas where I think Alabama could be better, and then there are some areas where they definitely need to be better if they want to be even the same team. Offensive line's got to improve. That's got to improve. Eric Walford did a good job, but you lose Tyler Steen, you lose a guard. So there's some open positions there. Offensive line recruiting has been very good. Really highly rated player last year, Elijah Pritchett. He had an arm injury, wasn't able to go this year. Second year, hopefully he's there, good to go. Then we talked about Caden Proctor, 6'7", top 10 player in the nation coming out of high school. He's at Iowa, and he talked about how, you know, Alabama flipped him from Iowa. He said he didn't want to be the only guy. Kind of talking about that competitive mindset we were talking about earlier. He didn't want to be the only dude at a program. He wanted to go somewhere where he lined up and the guy next to him is a 5-star. Everybody's going to ask about quarterback. And the interesting thing with quarterback is if you start breaking down what Tommy Rees did at Notre Dame, both of these quarterbacks have a place in that system. Both of them do. And so I'm no closer to answering who's going to be the quarterback at Alabama before the Tommy Rees hire than I am after the Tommy Rees hire. If you made me choose,
because you got a guy with some wheels.
You have Jalen Milroe, and his upside is so high. It's going to be tough, man. Ty Simpson is more of a polished passer.
Okay.
And whenever you talk to people, they might tell you Jalen Milroe can't pass. That's not true. He's just inconsistent. He needs to develop that consistency. You'll watch him make some throws and you're like, timing was good. You threw it as he was coming out of his break. Like, this is good stuff. And then the next throw, it's the complete opposite.
So are you thinking more of a dual quarterback deal here?
I think
the guy's pretty electric. What I saw, rush. You know, you got to get a guy like that the ball.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think if Ty Simpson continues to showing what he can do throwing the ball, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field.
Okay, that's fair.
Because he has some athleticism too. Now, he's no Jalen Milroe. He's not like that. Wide receiver is an area everybody's going to be talking about. They get the number 1 JUCO player in the nation, Malik Benson, coming in, and he's really solid. And some of their freshmen last year were really good, just inexperienced. So hopefully that's an area that continues to develop. But they really need that room. That's another room that needs to step up, right?
Okay.
Like, talent is there, but you have got to step up. Defensively, man, you know, you lose Will Anderson, and that's a loss. But I don't know if you've ever really peeped at what Alabama has stockpiled at that edge position.
Oh my God,
a little insane. So in the same class, they got Will Anderson, Chris Braswell, and Drew Sanders. That was your number 1, 2, and 3 edge in the nation. All 3 of them were 5 stars. The next year, they get Dallas Turner, who's the number 1 edge in the nation. The next year, they get Jeremiah Alexander, who's the number 1 edge in the nation, and Jihad Campbell, who's the number 2 edge in the nation, who's now going to be playing inside linebacker. And then this year, they get the number 1 edge in the nation, Keon Keeley, and then 5-star edge, Janze Pierre. There is so much talent at that outside linebacker edge position. It's a little scary. So that's going to be a room. It's fun.
Keon Keeley, a name that Florida Nation knows well. We thought we were in the hunt for him. And we did get a guy out of Alabama, right out of Nick Saban's backyard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Collins.
Yep.
Beast. Absolute
Collins.
beast. That's a guy the staff wanted bad. And the interior of the defensive line, if you're telling me, Ty, what's the area that you really need to see improve, it's got to be the interior of the defensive line.
What's the big boys?
Yep. Because this past year, Justin Eboigbe was probably off to his best season. He had a neck injury that really, took him out the whole season.
Okay.
He looks like he's going to be clean to play. But whenever you look, the drop in production on the interior defensive line, it's significant.
And
right?
I don't care if he's a 5-star number 1 interior defensive line. You really can't. In the SEC, you can't stick a freshman out there, correct?
You can, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, you want somebody, because the thing is, man, is they might be going up against a guy who is also a 5-star, who this is year number 3 in the SEC. So now he's bigger, stronger, faster, and smarter in terms of football IQ. That's a mismatch. So they got some 5-star guys, like a James Smith, right? Edric Hill, very highly rated. They're going to be great depth. I think if you're telling me the name you want to know on the interior, Jaheim Otis came to Alabama 400 pounds plus, and in one offseason lost 70 pounds. That's how committed he is to his craft.
So we got an Alabama Big Dez. Have you seen Big Dez?
Oh, I've heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah. Big Dez. I think I sent you. No, sorry. Big Dez came in, not a 5-star.
Otis wasn't either. He was a very high blue chip 4-star though. Like Bama had been after him since 8th grade.
Big Dez comes in at 400 and I think 460. He came
that's a big boy.
Big boy. He is a man amongst. Now he has got on a weight program and lost some weight. Quite a bit of weight, but I think he's down to 400 or 390. His playing weight, they want him at 375, which is just, that's crazy. But
yeah,
we're talking giant men.
Yep.
But as it takes some time to put some weight on, it also takes the time to get it off. And it's not all good weight. When a lot of it is just too much grandma's fried chicken and apple pie. You know what I mean? And so you gotta get them healthy and get them in the weight, because what are they gonna do if they go up against Tennessee? That guy's gonna be gassed.
Yep.
And so you gotta get in playing shape. So that's kind of cool, you guys. It's funny how these programs kind of parallel each other, but you got a guy that is not like Big Dez, not proven a lot, has had snaps, had success, does kind of have a weight problem, right? I would say.
Not anymore.
Okay, so he lost it.
He lost it before the freshman season, and he's lost like another 20 pounds after.
Okay.
This dude, and he played this season.
Unproven then.
Yeah, but he was even number 2 or 3 in tackles for the defensive line as a true freshman this season.
Okay.
Like, as far as he played a lot, but the problem is you have him, you have Tim Smith, and you have Eboigbe. Those are your 3 guys with experience. Outside of that, you don't have a lot of real bona fide experience.
So
there's talent.
Not a typical Alabama defense then.
Maybe not. Now, here's the thing. If Otis, if he if he takes the trajectory he could and a Boygby gets back in shape, that defensive line between those two could be real ferocious. And like I said, there is talent where if you start rotating, Jamil Burrows is going to be a guy that could be poised for a nice season. But right now, I don't look at that defensive line and there's not a Deron Payne or a Jonathan Allen or a Quinnen Williams. You know
Or
what I
like
mean?
Georgia had Carter this
Carter.
past
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Not
You just
proven.
know. Yeah.
Otis, though, man, he has me as excited as any Alabama interior defensive lineman in a while. His upside is awesome.
Isn't that crazy to be excited about? We're talking interior defensive lineman.
Oh,
That's how
I
you
know.
know we got a problem.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
no doubt. Yeah.
Like just hearing Ty's voice, like, oh man, that gets me riled up. And interior, we're talking an interior defensive lineman, not a position where usually people get riled up at. It's like we're talking center and guard work, right?
Scheme begins and ends in the trenches.
Yeah,
Everything.
we've seen that.
Yeah. And so Nino's Sports Corner, I highly recommend. He has a video that really dove deep into Texas recruiting before they hired Steve Sarkisian. And it is so eye-opening into how they completely disregarded the trenches. Just completely didn't even pay it any mind. And then they're surprised when they're not winning games. And it's just like, yeah, you were the worst in the Big 12 at recruiting the offensive line.
Yeah.
Like worse than Kansas. It was
not good.
Awful, like awful the attention they paid. But yeah, just to prove the point.
Florida knows all about that.
You gotta recruit the trenches.
During the Will Muschamp era, we didn't even have enough offensive linemen to run the spring game. We had to use defensive linemen.
That's not a good place to be.
That's bad. That is real bad.
You're lucky if you win 5 games in that situation, if I'm being honest. Like, that's bad.
Because the injury bug is going to hit. Those guys get rolled up all the time.
All the time.
And then they're out 2-3 weeks with an ankle.
Yep.
So what's a winning, successful season to you? Give me 2. Give me the winning successful season for Ty, and then give me the typical fan expectation for Alabama.
You already know the typical fan expectation is that Alabama's right back in the contention for a national championship next year.
Okay, so natty or nothing.
Like I said earlier, I understand people look at that when Alabama fans say that and they're like, that's unreasonable. But at a certain point when you've been the expectation as opposed to the rule, like, I feel you. For me, I feel like the season we just saw could be very realistic for Alabama to repeat. A 2-loss season because they lost some key talent, man. Like, you didn't just lose a quarterback. You lost Bryce Young. You didn't just lose an edge rusher. You lost Will Anderson. You just didn't lose one safety. You lost both of your starting safeties. You lost both inside linebackers. You lost your starting tight end. You lost Jahmyr Gibbs. You know what I mean? Like, this is a real serious pool of talent that has lost. So Bama is still going to be very, very good. And in some ways, they could be better than they were the previous season. And the reason I say that, they couldn't get out of their own way. They averaged like 10 plus penalties a game. Against Texas and Tennessee, they had 15 plus. Against Tennessee, they had 17.
The offense wasn't good.
If they can just play disciplined football, that will already be a step better. You get what I'm saying? So it's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun.
Which, Saban was just probably, I couldn't imagine the words that he used during some of those meetings.
Which was what made it so surprising. When we're almost at the end of the season and we're still saying Bama in their own way, penalty after penalty after penalty. And you're just sitting there. It's like, guys, this is game 9, 10. This isn't game 1, 2, or 3. I have no excuses for this anymore.
Yeah.
That's something it cannot repeat. Because if this Bama team is as undisciplined as the previous one that had the Heisman Trophy winner and Will Anderson and all of that talent and experience, you don't have that experience on this team.
Yeah.
You're going to be in a world of trouble.
Yep. And then people are going to start questioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, and I even don't mind some of the hires. Like, I look at the Tommy Rees hire and I think he has something to bring to this offense that can help a new quarterback come along, right? Like, I think it's actually a good offense for where we are in terms of what the roster has. So I'm very excited for next season because I think there's logic in the argument saying Bama's going to push for a playoff game, and then I think there's logic in the argument questioning, but what are you going to do with all the losses you had? It's such an awesome place to be.
So, as a Bama fan, if they don't make the playoffs, are you disappointed?
It depends.
Is that still a
Depends.
successful year?
If they repeat like a year this year where they don't make the playoffs, they have 2 losses, go out and win a bowl game, I'll be like, "Hey, that's Bama lost all that talent and they had 2 losses."
Maybe
I'm
maybe a little cleaner on the penalties.
Yes, right? This is the thing. Wins and losses, I want them to make the playoffs, but the penalties, they have got to get cleaned up. And if they don't
Yeah.
get that cleaned up, I don't care. It didn't matter when you had Bryce Young, who I think is a generational talent, right? Like it didn't matter. All that generational talent didn't matter. You
Okay.
couldn't get out your own way. So this Bama team is going to be really fun, man. Like this is an awesome Bama team to really start charting, and for you, really just getting started into podcasting. What a better team because you have this logical side where it's like, yes, the talent they have, but then this also equally logical side saying they had problems last year though when they were
Yeah.
over the moon talented. Most combine invites actually beat Georgia for most combine invites, and they couldn't get out of their own way. It's an incredible conversation to have.
And we can say this, Ty. Some teams just don't gel together.
Some teams just don't gel together. You're 100% right.
You know, I think we saw that in Florida. Just a team with talent, and you know they're saying AR is going to be a first round pick, maybe number 1 overall, and just we couldn't get out of our own way.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think people need to realize, you know, we're not saying that Ty's not saying, you know, oh well, I'm okay with Alabama not being a national champion. Every fan wants to win a
Of
natty.
course.
But me and Ty, I can say this from the amount of time that we have talked on and off. We are very realistic about about our teams. And we're not going to come on here and tell you that I'm not going to say Florida's primed to win a national championship because that's not true. And Ty's not telling you that Alabama's even prime right now to win a national championship. We don't even know what Georgia's going to be like.
Yeah, I have no idea what Georgia's going to look like next year. I know they're incredibly talented, but you had a quarterback that played that damn offense like a violinist, right? Like
You,
Stetson knew that
you
offense
know
and
what
just
I call Stetson?
hmm,
I call him Dr. Bennett. And you know why?
hmm.
Because he was in college longer than most doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's you don't have that experience anymore, and you don't have Monken anymore, right? So it's like I don't know what Georgia's going to look like. I think they're going to be great, but teams like that, man, we know that Georgia, we know that Alabama, we know that Ohio State have the capability to push for playoffs. But in the terms of Georgia and Ohio State, they just made playoffs.
Yeah.
Bama had all that talent and they didn't even make it to the dance. So I don't feel right coming on here and being like, oh, the team that does not have the Heisman Trophy winner and the guy many people consider one of the best players to ever play at Alabama, the team that doesn't have those guys is going to be a better team.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's a tough
All right,
argument.
we're gonna wrap this thing up. I do have one last question for you.
Absolutely,
I
my
always
man.
like to ask one question. What is the most fanatical thing that you've done? Have you smashed a TV? So right now we are down an iPhone and a TV remote on the list of things that have gotten smashed. And then what play was it?
Huh. This is a good one. So I'll give you 2.
Okay.
Kick 6. All right. Kick 6. I'll
Oh
never forget
yeah.
where I was. I'll never forget who was watching the game at my house. And I had about 5 buddies of mine from the football team over at the ranch. Right. And so we're all watching. The kick 6 happens. I just get up and leave. I just get in the 350Z and drive from the ranch into Gainesville and go to my buddy's house. Granted, all of my friends are still at my house. No way to leave or anything. I was just like, I'm out. I'm
You
not.
left
I'm
them.
not dealing with this. I'm gone. And if I'm not mistaken, Paul Walker died that night. So bad omens all around.
Yeah.
The other one though is nothing to do with the game, but it's when I toured Alabama and I kind of, I told you about this off in the green screen. My family and I kind of snuck into the football
Yeah.
stadium with the football people that were touring, and then they figured us out pretty quickly when they looked at me, and then they looked at all the kids that were there to really tour the football program, and they're like, one of these
Yeah.
things is not like the other.
Yeah.
I was like, hi, I'm the kicker.
You
And that
snuck,
didn't, yeah.
snuck into a football game.
Yeah. And well, I didn't get to sneak into the game. I got to sneak in the day before.
Oh, okay.
Got to meet the guy who runs concessions at Alabama at the time. Ironically, he had the same last name as me, Robert Hayes. Super good guy. Took me back and my family back to his apartment and gave us tickets to the game. And so I got to watch the game the next day to cap off my visit. It was awesome. Yeah, but probably those two.
Okay. So no electronic equipment has been
No, man, my parents would have reamed me. That'd have been
has been damaged under Ty. So
No.
I can't say that
There's still time though. Don't get me wrong.
there's still time.
There's still time.
Because it gets a little wild.
Yeah.
I can't say the best for Solderquist's iPhone and Holly's TV remote. Rest in peace, please.
Hey, it happens to the best of us.
But it does happen. So, all right, man. I appreciate you coming on. This was a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely,
tell
man.
ya.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome on anytime here at F is for Fanatic. I don't even know how long this podcast is going, but man, it was just a breeze, just like usual.
Yeah,
so
man. Ton of fun.
and I know Ty's gonna have me on the show pretty regularly. We have been talking about, so the Cody and Ty duo are gonna be pumping out some content.
Absolutely, guys. And one of the things I was telling Cody, we talked in the green screen. I want to have him on my show at least once a month, because I really want to start having a deeper rotation of representation for every team, because that's kind of what the theory was at one point for Around the Table Sports. It would be kind of multiple people talking about their teams. We could cultivate debate. We could cultivate multiple fan bases in one setting and just kind of flourish all together. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to have you continue to hopping on the stream talking Florida ball.
All the time, man. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and we are out, and we will see you again next week. This is Cody with F is for Fanatic. Go check out Ty's stuff. Where can you get that, Ty? I got your YouTube page in the description also.
Yeah, it's Around the Table Sports on YouTube. I'm constantly doing content. You can catch me over there.
All right. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right.